And it's so silly, but I was 14 and having that instilled in me that, hey, I had a goal, I could do this, freaking do anything that I want if I put the hard work in. And that never left me. And that always has kind of stayed with me, you know?
All right. Welcome, all of you, to another episode of World Class Mindset, WCM. And today's guest is someone I am very excited to share with all of you. Many years ago, I met this young lady, and from the moment I met her, and I think you'll feel the same way, I felt I was in the presence of someone who was genuinely excited, authentic, believed in herself, believed in what she was doing. And she was introduced to me, Sarah, from other friends who are in my business. And they told me that Sarah might be able to help me with my finances, with my accounting, with my taxes, and all those areas to secure my estate and make sure that my legacy is tight. But rather than me telling all of you who Sarah Jones is and what she does, first, Sarah Jones, welcome to WCM. Good to have you here, honey.
Thank you for having me, Gigs.
Would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself and then kind of what you do, and we'll set the stage there and we'll kind of go from there?
Absolutely. So I'm Sarah Jones. I am in Texas. I am a certified public accountant, a CPA. I own Sarah Jones CPA. We're a CPA firm here. I say we're in Houston because nobody knows where we are. I'm in a little town in between Conroe and Willis, but it's about an hour north of Houston. Quit my full-time job in 2018 and went out on my own. And it was the scariest thing I ever did, but I'm very grateful that I did. We kind of offer full service accounting, outsourced CFO, but a big part of our business is we do full service tax. We do a lot of tax planning. And we feel like we're different. And I'm really proud of that. I feel like we're called to be different. We're called to be what we're made and do what we were made to do. And kind of our mission, or what we say around here, we say two different things. Our mission is we help our clients build their dreams, protect their assets, and grow their legacy. And then we also kind of say that taxes suck, so you need to make sure your CPA doesn't. So we are different. We put ourselves out there. We're really involved in our community. I love what I do. I love getting to connect with clients like you, and they all become friends. And I really feel like we get to make an impact in their life, which is really cool.
Often when you talk about accounting, not exactly something that people wake up and say, let's talk about accounting and numbers. I always get, kind of intimidated by it all. But you really have made it so much easier. And I'm going to use the word fun, more fun for me to be able to really look at what's going on in my life. I've never had a better handle on my life in my financial world as I have with you. So I just want to share that with all of you, because if you are without an accountant, or if you're not happy with the one you have, Sarah Jones is someone you might want to talk to. 2018, you said you went out, you started your own, very, very scary. Let's go back even beyond that. Let's go back to your early days growing up. Did you have some role models back then? What did you do before you did this?
So I'm from here. I grew up in a little town called Willis, Texas, in the country. I had an amazing childhood. I have a great family, great mom and dad. I will tell you, we did not have a lot of money. My parents worked very hard, but I didn't know that. It was like paradise. It was so fun. So my dad did construction, and I think like from early on, like my dad is probably the hardest worker I know. We didn't see him a ton. He worked 2 to 3 jobs at a time. And he did that so that my mom could stay home with us, because there were 3 of us. I think from the beginning, I saw that hard work was really important. Even now, like my dad thinks everybody's lazy. And I kind of am the same way too. It's like I'm a workhorse. I always say, you might be smarter, younger, better than me, but nobody can outwork me. I got that from my dad. And from my mom. I always say that I got my hard work from my dad and my stubbornness from my mom. And both of those traits have really served me well. That, growing up, I'll tell you a story of something that really instilled something in me really young. And it's so silly, but to me, it was a game changer. So I wanted to become a cheerleader, and we didn't have money for all that. You have to go get trained up. But I had it in my mind that I was going to be a cheerleader. So back when I went to school, you couldn't be cheerleader in junior high like you can now. So I was going to be a freshman. I had it in my mind that I was going to be a cheerleader. I had no idea what I was doing. I made myself my own training stuff. I actually kept a picture of a Willis High School cheerleader that I would look at when I was practicing, like to keep myself motivated. Well, then they saw that I actually could do stuff. I made the team, but I actually became head cheerleader. And it's so silly, but I was 14, and having that instilled in me that, hey, I had a goal, I could do this, freaking do anything that I want if I put the hard work in. And that never left me, and that always has kind of stayed with me. It's such a silly little story. It made there's like a point in my mind that it shifted me and gave me that mindset that truly anything you want to do, you can do. You just have to work for it.
I don't know when the trigger, when we thought we could do anything, but as I listen to you and I hear, your father, hard worker, you picked up on those qualities, mom, who was a nurturer and a giver. There was no, quote, money in there, but you had all the ingredients that any family would want to have for their children, regardless of whether they had a lot of money or not. So now you're beyond your teens. Let's go into your more adolescent years. Now you're going to college, you're going to school. How do you discover like your calling and what you wanted to do? How did that come about?
So I met a boy when I was 17, and he lived in Conroe. And when you lived in Willis, if you dated a Conroe boy, that was like a big deal. He was older than me. He had already enlisted in the Marine Corps, and we fell in love and we got married. I got married at 18 gigs.
18.
I was super young and I got married. We barely even knew each other too. But so he got stationed in Hawaii. So I left home and I lived in Hawaii for 2 years. And then Chloe, my daughter, who's 20, was born in Hawaii. And then he got orders to go to Virginia. He was at Quantico, which is kind of like northern DC area. And we were there for almost 2 years. He came home one day and said, I met somebody else and I kind of want you and Chloe to go home. At that time, I still didn't have even my undergraduate degree. I was working on school. So we packed up and I came home to Texas, no money in the bank. Now we went through a divorce and I was a single mom. And honestly, gigs kind of pissed me off a little bit in the fact that it made me in my mind say, I'm not going to be okay with being not that I wasn't uneducated, I just wasn't done yet. This isn't the life that I want, with no money, no trajectory, and having my success in my life dependent on somebody else. So I came home. I thankfully was able to finish the undergraduate degree that I started online. And then I put myself through graduate school. Wasn't interested in anything else. And it literally was, I would work all day, be mom to Chloe, then I would make a pot of coffee and I would study like literally all night. I got my MBA in finance, graduated with the 3.86. That means I only got 1 B my entire time. I graduated in December of 2008. And if you remember, that was like when the economy was crashing. Wow. My goal, kind of my dream of what I wanted to do, is I kind of envisioned going to be a bond trader on Wall Street. Like finance actually interests me a lot more naturally than accounting does. So I stayed at my job. I worked for the state and I had a great, very low paying, but very comfortable and secure job. And they said, we can't give you more money, but if you want, we'll pay for you to go get another degree. So then I went and got my master's degree in accounting. Then I really was like, this is really cool. I went on then, so I have 3 masters. Then I went on to get a master's degree in finance. What happened is my last job that I was at, my boss, she actually was a great friend. She was an awful boss. She was very type A, wasn't a great leader. One of the last things that happened is something happened with the staff, and I was the senior accountant. And she took her frustration out of me. Well, there was a lot of papers and she threw her papers at me. And it was kind of like the last straw. I remember specifically, I went home and I told Phil, who's my husband, I said, I don't want to try to go out on my own. And I'll never forget what he told me. He said, Sarah, like worst case scenario, let's say that you suck. Okay, let's say you're awful at it. I mean, you just go get another job. I mean, you have all these degrees and experience. And I remember like, because I'm so conservative by nature and I'd never done anything. I'd always worked for somebody else. And I said, so this is kind of like the worst case scenario is what I'm doing right now. And that right there, what he told me back in, it was like, well, I quit full time in May of 18. So it was probably February of 2018. It gave me the strength and just the confidence to say, okay, I'm going to try this, to put my notice in. And I just started. And that's kind of how that went. Is
That
where I said, okay, I'm going to do this and try it. I never thought about it that way. Sometimes you hear something, maybe you've heard it a million times, but you just hear it in a different way. And exactly what he told me, this is the worst case scenario. It was like, oh man, that's such an opportunity then. So it
yes.
gave me the confidence I needed.
Let me go back to when you said you were 18 and gigs. I was just pissed off. You used, it sounds like you used that negativity, that chip, so to speak, on your shoulder. Talk about that a little bit. Like, how did that work for you?
One of the questions I always ask when I talk to people about goals or mindset is, you can have something that happens to a person. And like, there's an old kind of, not a wives' tale, the story of like a guy that he grows up with an alcoholic father, and he grows up to be an alcoholic, and he says, well, I'm an alcoholic because my father was. Or you could take the same son and he's highly successful and he says, well, I'm the way I am because my father was an alcoholic. I feel like when happens, it's fertilizer, and you got to use it to grow, because if not, I mean, that's what
I
it's for.
love that. When happens, it's fertilizer. I'm going to steal that line from you, Sarah
You got
Jones.
to steal it because it's true. If you've ever studied, like, Jim Rohn is one of my favorite people of all
That's
times,
what
and
I'm
he
going to
talks
ask you.
about,
Right. Yeah. Tell me about
oh,
that, Jim Rohn, because he's one of mine. Tell me about that.
so the seed, I remember specifically, gigs, when I was turning 30. So I still worked for the state and we didn't have a lot of money. I was remarried at the time to Phil, and I was turning 30. And I remember I bought for myself the Jim Rohn huge compilation of CDs, like 30th anniversary. And that was such a huge investment for me. I still have that and I still play those CDs.
Jim Rohn was one of my big mentors. Tony Robbins, I would go to 3 or 4 of those events, and Tony would share that Jim Rohn was a major influence, that he was who he was because of Jim. Talk a little bit about that, because this is very important, what you're touching on right now. I mean, I'm hearing you and feeling you, and all who are watching are hearing and feeling you. You're unstoppable. It's obvious. You've got this mindset. You listen to these, huh? These are still inspiring you. That's where your base came from. In other words, your parents taught you values. They taught you hard work, but it sounds like you got some of this stuff from the outside, people like Jim Rohn. What role does he and others outside play in your life?
Plays a huge role. And I'll be honest, like, growing up, I mean, my family's great, but everybody thought I was weird because I was always different. And I went against the grain, and nobody had goals and dreams like I did. And they're like, so weird. I wish really that I would have just accepted my weirdness at an early age, because I always tried to fit in and not be weird. And then now I'm 41, and I'm like, man, your weirdness is what makes you sell. It's what's in you that you're supposed to give to the world. For somebody like me, that, again, I had a great upbringing, but I didn't have parents that felt the same way, or did things about self-improvement or anything like that.
We can all give excuses. You know, well, my parents didn't this, and I didn't have that, and I didn't have this. You figured out, okay, my parents, there's good things about them, but there was other areas that I needed to go outside and learn. A lot of women that have children, single moms, you know, you hear them talk about how difficult it is, because being a single mom and having a career and having how do you balance all of that? And what do you say to those who say, well, I have all of these challenges? Because then one woman says that's an excuse as to why she can't. Someone like you says, no, use that as fuel.
I would say, and I'm going to say this, and I don't want to come off as being ugly or rude in any way, shape, or form, but if I saw somebody that said I couldn't do that because it's too hard, I would say, man, one, there's a little bit of laziness in there somewhere. And I'm sorry, I'm just calling it how it is. If you came to me, Gigs, and said, I want to go create a circus, be like, dude, that's amazing. Because if you were to do it, I mean, I'm saying that as something silly. If you have the mindset, and if you believe in yourself, and you constantly tell yourself, and you have the goals, like right now, you can't see this. I have those big, like, Post-it notes that go on your walls, the huge ones, with goals everywhere. You have to look at it. You have to eat, sleep, and breathe it, because if not, you literally look up and it's 20 years later and you haven't accomplished anything. I mean, God gave us this life to go serve and love and do, and that's your gifts, or how you do that to the world. That's what you're supposed to give out. So if you're not doing that, not only is, I feel like there's a little laziness, could be a lot of fear in there, but you're not living out the God-given and breathe goals and desires that everything that he gave you to go give to the world. You're selling every short, not just yourself. Every single person has these gifts and abilities. Like I'm really good at what I do, but I'm really bad at other stuff. I mean, really bad at some other stuff, but I'm good at this. So this is what I do. And I make it fun and lively. And I use it to connect people and get them to see the value in the things that they can do. You know, in your business of what you do, you connect people, you get people motivated and inspired. If somebody listening has something, you know, those kind of gut feelings like, man, I wish I could do this. You're supposed to do that. It's not that you just have those feelings just to have it. Like that's been given to you, and that's a gift that the world needs. You need to get your mindset right, get around good people. If you don't have anybody in your circle, go find Jim Rohn, Darren Hardy, Tony Robbins, you know, all those people, Brian Tracy, like all of those, they're so, Zig Ziglar, like all of those people can be your best friend and come into your world and help you to get what you need to get to where you need to go.
You mentioned a lot of names of a lot of people that have been my mentors and my coaches, my go-to, and they become, quote, like you said, my friends. So what advice would you give to someone who's watching this and who maybe they're stuck? Maybe, you know, they're afraid to move forward.
I was in Hawaii and I went to a used bookstore and it was Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins. So I was probably 18 or 19 when I read that book. And I remember sitting there being like, what in the hell? What have I missed? Like it opened up a whole new world for me. I had a different feeling, that's very similar feeling when I read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. That book to me is kind of on my list that I continue to read. Or maybe if you're not a reader, you just have to start somewhere. I remember when I came home from Texas, I moved in with my brother and my sister-in-law, and I lived there for a year and a half till I got on my feet. But one of the things I would do is when Chloe when it was time to take naps, she liked to go in the car. I'd put her in the car and I would go to neighborhoods and I would go look at houses. And that to me, it was so far from where I could ever be. But that's what I would do. And it would motivate me and inspire me and say, I'm going to have this for my daughter one day. Really, I think I made $24,000 a year when I was working at that time. But I would go look at those neighborhoods and those houses because I wanted that for my daughter.
You're just bringing me back to my days when I was busted broke, Sarah. I was so broke I couldn't afford to pay attention. But I would drive into those neighborhoods with those beautiful homes because I too, like you, found myself married and I had dreams, but yet I wasn't anywhere near where I wanted to be. And by looking at those homes, that inspired me. Your mindset is something that is very, very solid, not overnight. So I guess your advice to people is go listen to an audible, because you can get these now on Audibles, right? And listen to them and program your thinking. So as you continue to venture out, you obviously have big dreams, big goals. Talk a little bit about that.
One of the things that when I first started in 2018, I was a one-woman show. So we are a 7-figure CPA firm. We have 11 team members. One, I absolutely love what I do. I love giving massive value. What I've found is that I only have so many hours in the day, and everybody wants a piece of Sarah. And so what I really am wanting to do, and I feel like it could change, I'm so excited about it. I want to do a lot of digital products of some of these high-level courses of how to get control of your finances, how to move past fear, how to actually make sure that your business is set up. How do you make sure your bookkeeping's done? All the stuff that nobody wants to deal with, but we make it fun. We make it manageable in a way that it empowers you and lets you actually take control of your finances and your business and all this stuff and offer it as a digital course so that I can reach all the people that need the help, because no CPAs are doing this. What I find is that most CPAs are great CPAs. What they're not great at is being a communicator and a business owner, and their systems and processes aren't great. I think that's where we really shine, is because I can actually have a conversation. I can take something that's complex and kind of Flintstone it down. And that's what clients want. There's so much, people have so much fear kind of inherently attached with their money that they need somebody that will go down that process with them and give them power or empowerment over that. So that's something that really in the next year and two, that I'm really gonna to do is a lot of digital products to be able to give, this is how you should be set up. This is the tax planning that you need. How do you know if your bookkeeper's doing good? How do you integrate CFO services? All that stuff. So it's kind of puts the learner and the client in the seat of taking control. So we're doing that. We are going to be opening a full wealth management side, empowering clients and doing all that. And then one thing that's kind of like that big, hairy, audacious goal, you talk about those kind of in the
Big
back.
hairy goal, yeah.
I really think I want to go to law school. I think I don't need to. I'm a licensed CPA. I'm an EA licensed.
You can go get your law degree, Sarah.
But I would do. I want to go to law school, probably like for estate planning, and maybe I don't need the tax, but it would be neat to do the tax because I'm already a CPA. So to really have a firm that's full encompassing, accounting, all of your taxes, wealth management, and the estate planning and tax side, that's what I want to do.
Girl, you are amazing. My daughter, as you know, is in law school right now. And I've always told her, regardless, even if you don't practice law, it's good to have that knowledge, that education, that law degree, because whatever you do, it's going to accelerate you. But here you are, wildly ambitious, incredibly ambitious in the best of ways, too, because you want to help people. You want to create things to help people expand their wealth in all 50 states, right? You're operating in all. You're not your average accountant, Miss Sarah Jones. Let's talk a little bit about some of this pushback that you get. How do you deal with pushback? Like when you're a dreamer and you're ambitious like you, how do you deal with those people?
I don't tell a lot of people my goals because most people will think my goals are stupid. If I went to somebody and said, my goal is to take my company to $10 million in 5 years, and they said, oh, you can't do that. One, that's probably not a person that I want in my inner circle, but my goals should be my goals. They're in me, because if you brag about them and then you don't do them, that's not very good.
So you're keeping your big, bodacious, hairy, crazy goals within, but then you're surrounded by like-minded people, your inner circle. Talk about that.
Oh, it's vital. And I will tell you, I really didn't have that circle because again, everybody still does kind of think I'm weird, and I'm okay with that. But like I reached out and I was in a mastermind for accountants. So think of like the nerdiest mastermind ever. And I was in it. I did I was fortunate enough to do like one that helped you to grow to 6 figures. And then I committed. I remember I didn't even have the money to pay for it, but I had a strategy call with them. We were in vacation. I went outside. My family was in there to do this call. And he said, it's 30 grand for the year. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to pay for it, but I'm going to do it. And it was designed to take your firm from 6 figures to 7 figures. And I did it, Gigs. I had no idea of why I committed to doing it because I couldn't afford it. It did exactly what it was supposed to do. And it gave me that mastermind that I needed. I mean, that's so important.
What do you see future-wise for our country? And how do you feel about that and where we're headed and how we can maybe get ourselves on track? What do you see in the future? And what do we have to do to create a better world?
Can I flip the question on you a little bit?
Sure.
I would say, because I literally have people that will book on my calendar to talk about about exactly this. And from the moment they get on the call with me, it's completely fear-based. It's all negativity and fear-based. I would say, I don't care who's in the seat. I don't care who controls it, who's our president. I don't care what interest rates are. I don't care what the economy is. You have every single thing that you need to go be successful now. And all of that stuff is irrelevant. I've had, for example, like a lot of financial advisors said, oh, my career's, completely done after 2008. I would say, again, I don't want hate mail. There's a little bit of laziness, probably a lot of fear. You could have turned that around and done something else. Because anything that you're doing now, all of those skills and that hustle, that mindset, you can transpose to anything else. Sometimes does life suck? Yes, and but it's fertilizer and you keep going. So that to me is what separates people. Doesn't matter about all the external stuff. Are you going to use what you have to actually go create something and serve and love on people? Or are you just going to say, I can't do it because this person's in office or because there's a recession or interest rates are high? I think that's an excuse.
It's very fear-based, almost conspiracy theorist. I hear it a lot, and I just walk away from it and realize, okay, that's how they feel. That's not how I feel. That's not what I believe. And then I'm going to hold dearly to what I believe, which is what you believe, is that we can accomplish anything that we set our minds to. And this nation has not lived out its best days. Its best days are in front. Most important, don't be lazy, be ambitious, dream big dreams, put what you want in front of you. You obviously have big dreams, big ambitions. I just feel so blessed, as everybody who is watching this broadcast, to hear from you today, Sarah. Is there anything else that you would like to share with the world in terms of mindset? Because the whole premise of this podcast is about growing and developing a world-class mindset.
I would say be very mindful of what you allow into your mind, because it really, really, really does affect you. You were talking about, start somewhere, get something, go get free stuff on YouTube instead of being on social media and looking at all this. That's the wrong type of stuff.
That's bad.
That's bad. You need to make sure that you're listening. Be aware of what you're listening, what you're watching, what you're reading, what you're allowing your family. Make sure that it's positive and it's in line with what you want to do, and make sure it's encouraging you instead of giving you that fear and all of that stuff. One example, I don't watch the news at all. Never have. To me, it's awful. But and I don't want hate mail, but make sure you look at everything you do and allow into your life through the lens of your goals and what you want and what you don't want, because it has a big effect on how things turn out. And a lot of it is not even, it's unconscious. It's just kind of in the background. It's really important.
You control what you allow into your mind and into your heart. I'm with you. I don't watch news. I don't watch TV. I try to keep up on lately on some of but even there, I'm noticing, because I never do that, it does impact me. It does cause me to get a little bit more apprehensive when I see this bad news. And so I've been without it for many, many, many years. Like yourself, you got to guard what goes into your mind and into your heart and into your eyes and ears, right? And that's what you're telling all of us to do, that we can control what we can control. Thank you so much for taking time out to share yourself with me and with the world, Sarah Jones. Thank you so, so much. Love you.
Love y'all. Thank you so much, Gigs.
You got it.